Welcome to the quarterly core director meeting. Thanks for coming out on this cold morning. We tried to ply you with some breakfast, so thanks for coming out. And if you need to, get up and get some more refreshments during the meeting, feel free to do so. We have a lot of content today. We like to communicate as much as we can to make sure that you're not surprised by anything. So we may have too much content, so we'll see how things go. But a few housekeeping items. If you are on the Zoom, we have a lot of folks attending by Zoom. If you have questions, please submit those in the chat. Also, please mute yourself, just so we don't have any background noise in the room. Today, we're going to have a couple of special presentations on the front end, and then Karen, myself, and Ben and Megan are going to present some information more relevant to operations at UNC. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started with a presentation from Alyssa Stepien and Robbie Poor. They are from UNC Creative, and we thought it was really important. This has been coming up a lot lately. You want to do some branding or have a new logo or host a workshop or things like that. And the folks from UNC Creative are incredibly helpful. I'm in the Department of Genetics, and we've relied on them a few times.
So my name's Alyssa, and I'm the art director and brand manager at UNC Creative, and my manager here, Robbie Poor, is here. He's going to be talking a little bit later. So just a little bit about UNC Creative. We're the in-house design agency of the university, and we're housed within University Communications. And so today we're going to talk to you a little bit about how to get started with designs at UNC. If you need something created, where do you begin? Talk a little bit about the university brand and custom brands, and then a little bit about the services that UNC Creative offers. We'll have some time for questions at the end, but also just know that if you have future questions or you need this information expanded upon later, we're here to help with that. So first off, you need to design some sort of marketing materials or really anything here, who can create them. It's pretty wide open. So if you have the skills and desire to, you can create those materials yourself or have someone in your department create them. UNC Creative can create them, and we would love to work with you all on your projects if possible. You can also go to an outside agency or a freelancer. So you're not required to use UNC Creative, but I would say it is preferable. Since we are managers of the brand, we're not going to create anything for you that has some sort of brand violation, which sometimes an outside agency, freelancer, or someone in your department can do. But that's really up to your discretion, the route you choose. And you might be wondering, where do I start with the design style? So you have a couple of options. You can use the general university brand. So I'll talk a little bit about where to find all of that information on the university brand. And that's an easy way to start. If you're like, I don't have kind of my own brand or style, and I just want to tie up to the university, using the main brand is a good route to take. But then you can create your own custom sub-brand, which I'll go into detail about, and that can look somewhat similar to the university brand and maybe have your own spin on it, or it can be a little bit more of a departure from the university brand, just depending on how you're organized, where your funding comes from, etc. So university brand, this is just a quick throwing out all the brand elements onto the screen. So it consists of our logo and our logo system. We have a color palette with our main palette and our secondary colors, our typefaces. We have other assets too, like textures, patterns, shapes. We have some other things not shown, like photo treatments. So if you wanted to go that route of using the university brand, these are all things that you can download off of our identity site, which I'll show you later. And then create your designs based on that. Of course, we can create designs based off that too, but that's a really good way. If you want your designs to appear at UNC, someone sees that and you're immediately affiliated with the university above everything else, that's going to be a good route to take. But sometimes groups have a little bit of a different need where you want to tie into the university somewhat, but you might be, a partnership with other universities, or you might get funding, like a lot of grant funding from other organizations. So you're going to be totally UNC, you're kind of your own thing, but you might want to tie to it somewhat. So in this example of a custom sub-brand, we have UNC Newark, and they decided to create a custom sub-brand with us. They qualified for a custom logo outside of the university system, and I'll go over those qualifications in a minute. They have their own color palette, which has some university colors, but then has like their orange, which is really unique to them. And then they had us pick custom typefaces, create some custom icons. We did some other shapes and things, and then did a website for them. So you can see how with the Carolina blue, that ties in with the university, but it's really like their own sort of brand. So that's an option too for everyone. So if you want to learn more about the university brand guidelines, or you're going to be using the brand in any way, recommend going through our identity website, identity.unc.edu. You can read about all of the rules and guidelines, but then also download some assets and templates. So we have the main university logo file, some colors. So there are some things you can download right from there and get started using. If your team really is just making presentations that you would need a nice template for, just go ahead and do that. But that is kind of the best resource, in addition to me and Robbie, about anything brand at UNC. And so then we have a few different types of logos at the university. I know Kara mentioned logo questions coming up a lot, so I'm going to go into some detail about these. Really at the university, we have 3 different types of logos. Our unit logo, department logo, which are branded to the university, and then a custom logo, which is pretty much like wide open for design. Our unit logo, you see here is the example is School of Medicine. So that's for schools, vice chancellor units, official centers and institutes. Most likely people in here will not be getting unit logos created. We kind of have that master list already. But then as we look at department logos, a lot of different departments can have those, and they get tied to their overarching unit. So, here we have one for brick that ties up to School of Medicine. If you wanted one of those, there is a bit of a process. So you would reach out to me or Robbie just to make sure that you qualify for that logo. And then we would reach out to the head of the lead communicator or the dean or vice chancellor from that unit to make sure they're okay with a new logo being created. And then from there, we would just create it for you at UNC Creative. No one else can make these. So even if you're like, I know that font, I think I can kind of put this together myself. We don't allow that, but it is a free service. So we'll create the logos for you, send you all the files. It might take us a week just with our workload to get it done, but we'll go ahead and send that to you. Finally, we have the custom logo, which the example is for Newark. That one is, you have to qualify for it as well. So again, reach out to me or Robbie if you really want to create anything. So for those, they're really for units that are not traditional like programs or departments at the university. So events, studies, groups funded outside of the university, which I think might apply to people in this group more. So if you're funded 50% or more outside of the university, through grant funding or, like a national organization, you could qualify for a custom logo. So once we determine that you qualify, UNC Creative can make that or an outside freelancer. The thing is with that, it's not free. So Robbie will talk a little bit more about UNC Creative, but there is a cost associated with that and a little bit more of a lead time, which I think is maybe up to 6 weeks for that. So it depends on how much time and money you have on that one as well. but you could also do it in-house, if you don't have those resources or the time to wait. I will say one caveat with all of these big asterisks is if the group is under School of Medicine, it's a little bit trickier and we have to go through a second layer of approvals and contact School of Medicine to get another approval from them. So just know that if you reach out to us with a logo request and you're affiliated with School of Medicine, it just might take a little longer to, yes.
Could you just stay a little closer to the mic for the people on?
Oh, of course. Okay. So, yeah, if you're affiliated with School of Medicine, we just need to go through another layer of approvals on that. And they may or may not allow the group to get a logo. So, yes.
Sorry, so quick question about that, because we were one of the groups that reached out, and what we heard was no cores could get a logo through School of Medicine. So is there another way to follow up to see if there's other requirements? It seemed like by saying we were a core facility, it was a blanket no.
We can follow up with you on that specifically. If it did come up and we told you that, it was because School of Medicine determined that, but they might be open to conversations. I think they're trying to maybe solidify those guidelines for themselves. So definitely follow up with us and we'll get this sorted out for you. And we do want, as much as we have the university guidelines, within those guidelines, we do want to leave it up to the schools and units to kind of chart their own path for brands. So it can get a little bit complicated with School of Medicine.
Hey, doggies, come on.
So next, printing. I know Kara mentioned that there were some questions about printing different items. So I'll say with different like print collateral, like marketing materials, so a brochure, a flyer, a postcard, you can use any printer. So something that you're printing for educational reasons or marketing, can use any one you want. Student Source on campus is a great resource, but you can also go to any of our local vendors, Vistaprint if you want. But for licensed merchandise, so that's things like swag items, pens, t-shirts, tote bags. If they bear any sort of university trademarked phrase or icon, so any logo, anything that says Carolina or UNC, that has to go through one of our licensed vendors. So we have a specific list of printers put out by trademarks that you all have to go to for those. And that list is on licensing.unc.edu. So next, we're going to talk a little bit about UNC Creative. So I'll have Robbie come up here to talk about our services, and just letting you know that you can see additional work at creative.unc.edu, our website. Also follow us on Instagram, please. You can see more of our updated work on there. We try to get that updated pretty frequently. But yeah, I'll see if Robbie wants to come up now and talk about Creative.
Thanks, Alyssa. I'm Robbie Poor. I'm the director of UNC Creative. I've been at this position for a little bit over a year now. Really love it. It's a great organization. So we're the in-house design agency for UNC Chapel Hill. We basically function like a design studio that you can hire us out for design work, and we'll help you out with that kind of thing. We've been around for about 40 years now. I don't know if any of you have used us before for design stuff. And we've won lots and lots of awards just since 2018. We've won 33 awards. I'm really, really proud of that. And we work on close to 250 jobs a year. So we're very busy, but we do keep a lot of jobs going through, and we do so we're receipts based. All our salaries are paid for by these receipts. So we're very unique in UNC that way, as we're sort of like facilities. We charge for every hour, that kind of thing. But we also operate basically as a nonprofit. So we're not here to make money. We're here to pay our salaries, basically have a net zero budget. So that's great. We do charge, so we charge are very competitive rates. We charge $80 an hour for print work. That means anything print related and brand related as well. And then $90 an hour for web work. So that's a lot cheaper than outside. I don't know if any of you guys have used any outside design agencies, but it can be a lot more expensive. We have a process where we go through, we'll meet with you. If you have anything you want to have created as small as a brochure or a report or anything like that, we'll meet with you. We can schedule your project. We'll make an estimate as well. That's very, very clear. And then we'll design multiple designs, go back and forth with you, and then work on your material and deliver things to you. And it's a pretty quick process. Typically, the time frame for lots of kinds of stuff, we always want to get things as early as possible. So don't run right up to your deadline and contact us. Contact us a little early, always helpful. So 2 to 4 weeks for presentations, invitations, programs, and animated GIFs, things like that. A little bit longer projects are sort of brand guides and logos and digital publications, websites, that kind of thing. So that's basically UNC Creative in a nutshell. And we're here to help. So if you have any questions, you can always email us. Please go to the website, check it out. Of course, the Instagram site is a really valuable thing. You can see all kinds of fun stuff that we do. And we're really excited to work at UNC, and we're a group of really talented professionals, and we're happy to work with you guys. So right now I can open it up for any questions. Yeah.
Oh, just go down for a contact info.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, sorry. Let's see. Oh, wrong one. Okay, there's our contact info. So that's Alyssa and myself, Robbie, and you can write to us to and find out any information. We also have forms on our website you can fill out for all kinds of things. Yeah. So any questions about UNC Creative or how we work, or brand questions as well? I'm sure Alyssa will be happy to answer anything. Yeah.
So is there a cost associated with getting a logo cleared for branding?
Cost for branding? No, usually I think branding advice is we usually just include that. If you have any questions about logos, about logo placement, just send us an email and we'll be happy to review it.
Yeah, and I would say too, so if you have questions about university branding, yeah, that's a free consulting service. If you create something in-house, you have a freelancer and you just want someone to check it to make sure that there's not any kind of brand violation, send it our way. That's a free service. So when it gets into the actual, if we're doing then design work for you.
Okay.
No, one person in the chat had a question that says, what if they already have a logo? Is there anything that they need to do to clear it with you guys or anything like that?
So if a core facility already has the logo, you can send it over. I think we can review it. I think it's probably okay. We'd have to check with the School of Med or whatever unit that it's under to make sure. Is that correct, Alyssa?
Yeah, I mean, if it's a department logo with the old well on there, we created that and got it approved already. But if it's a custom one, it's a good idea to send it our way.
Thank you.
Yes. So just to repeat that for the people on Zoom, if it's a custom logo, send it our way. If it's an official logo with the UNC, with the old well and the UNC School of Medicine, that's usually created by us. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Our next speaker this morning is going to be Jonathan Crabtree. He is the director of the Research Data Management Core. You've probably heard or seen emails about the RDMC. Some of your cores are going to be asked to prepare data management plans. We talked about this at the last core director meeting. Some of you may not have been asked before, but we thought it would be important to have Jonathan speak to us today to kind of give you some background so you understand what the Research Data Management Core is all about, what data management and sharing plans are. They're now required by NIH for all grants, and what the service can provide here at UNC. So I'm going to turn it over to Jonathan. Jonathan is presenting remotely. So Jonathan, can
good morning, everyone. A nice chilly morning. One thing for sure about North Carolina weather, if you don't like it, just wait a little bit. I think next week we're back into the upper 60s, maybe 70 by the end of the week. So I hope everyone's staying warm. Thanks so much for letting me talk a little bit about the Research Data Management course, a brand new group here at UNC. And I want to talk a little bit about it and how it impacts all the other great cores we have here. Let's see if I can advance the screen. So as Ben was mentioning, this this is really new since 2023 is when we started seeing teeth in the NIH policy. But for those of us that are in the research data management and sharing world, this is not new. We actually started hearing some talk about this decades ago. There were some studies here at UNC over a decade ago that we needed to get moving. Things are slow to get moving, but we eventually are trying to catch up to speed now. Most all of this immediate need was pushed by the NIH here, but it's not just the NIH. This is going to be the entire research process. All the funders are leaning towards this. Many, not only the federal funders, by 2025, all of the funders will have to comply that are federal funders, but also many independent groups are starting to follow suit. This is a trend, and we actually think the trend is going to continue, but and maybe even get more stringent. Many journals are already requiring not only the data to be shared, but also the methodology and the code in order to reproduce it as well. So we've been doing some of that work for the last few years when I was actually over at the Odum Institute. One thing that I probably should have mentioned early on, I am the inaugural director of this new research data management core, but many folks know several of our members here. We've been with Odum for many years. I've actually been with Odum for about 30 years. I actually started over there in the med school for a year or so, working with Soman. But we've been in the research data management and sharing area for many years on the social science side. And we have been building up more and more corpus of materials to work within the health affairs side. We're actually in the process currently of hiring a new health data steward, and we'll talk about that here in just a moment. So as I mentioned earlier, we have a new research data management core here. It is funded through the OVCR and partially through a new RDMC fee. And the key here is that it is tasked with coordinating and training and policy compliance and collaborations across the campus so we can align and coordinate what is already happening here. One thing that we have noticed over the years here at UNC, there's many silos going on, lots of great work happening, but often people don't know about it, can't get to it, can't find it, or moving things between the silos. There's not the fabric or the infrastructure to move things from one place where the data is being managed very well to for example, a final resting home, maybe in a repository. How do we get in transition between those two and preserve metadata as it moves across this infrastructure? So the primary goal here is to not only to deal with compliance, but help out along the way to be sure we coordinate the resources that we have here and be sure that the researchers know about folks like yourselves that do great work helping manage the data during the early parts of the active research lifecycle. So that fee went in effect this past November. I won't elaborate too much on this, but basically it's a very small amount. It's 0.38%. It turns out that the median cost for any individual grant here at UNC is a little over $20 for each month. So that is not a huge amount overall to do, and we can't do but so much for that small amount. There are some larger grants, the multi-million-dollar grants that do give us more resources to help, but they also have more needs as well. A lot of folks, including myself early on, thought, well, this should be part of FNA. Well, it turns out technically it cannot be part of FNA. FNA is a specific model with lots of costs that are built into it. And NIH didn't have a choice because they couldn't affect the FNA model. So that's why they asked us to make it as a direct cost. There's many things have changed since they created this FNA model many years ago. Lots of things have been added, lots of things that the UNC research has had to deal with and add new groups to make compliant. So we just couldn't add another unfunded mandate. So we knew that we had to come up with some sort of charge rate in order to help folks manage this. So how are we going to do this? So this is the important part, is that we see this as a holistic approach. It's not only about just the compliance component, it's creating research data stewardship to help people when they need help, to share knowledge, to identify people that don't need help, that maybe their knowledge needs to be shared with others. So we can make sure that we have a holistic approach here. There are some situations where we need research data infrastructure that's not there, either brand new infrastructure or things to connect the dots. And we'll talk about that a little bit. Of course, we have to have some administration, but one of the most important components are these domain experts. And we're going to be leaning heavily on those and helping support in the future what we call domain liaisons that will be out in the fields with in the labs, in the research groups, in areas to help people on the ground, because we will never have enough people within RDMC to do the actual data management. We're going to have to be working with folks that are already in the field doing this. So what things do we think about? Well, one, we thought about data stewardship, that we need to steward this through the whole research life cycle and start early and try to save as much metadata and as much information as we can and look at it as a research life cycle approach. Lots and lots of research has been done on this, and that if you don't start early, the cost of compliance with research data management and sharing policies are so high that you just cannot do it. You have to look at a holistic approach and begin saving and coordinating metadata very early on. And we want to have policies that allow researchers to adopt these practices, not just for compliance sake, but because it's the right thing to do, because these data are very valuable. And if we can track what we have and share this data into the future, it may prevent having to recollect data over and over again. So what are our activities? We have 4 main areas: education and training, working with folks to understand the policy, training on data curation, those types of things. One-on-one consultations when we have research teams that need somebody on their team to actually help out with creating research data management plans, understanding where and finding where they might be able to archive that data, or finding resources here on UNC during the active phase, and coordinating with those folks. Of course, policy compliance is important, and then infrastructure. Let's talk a little bit about how some of these things go and how they may relate to the research cores. So education and training we see this as a holistic approach, because if we don't start training people early, and that means in the graduate students, the research assistants, because they're going to be the future of our research life cycles here. And as we work with those folks to train them on exactly what the policy requirements are and what the options are here at UNC, what we want to do is embed these data stewards and domain experts all across campus and help coordinate those so they can share information between groups. So we have this campus-wide curriculum for data management. We'd actually also like to work with like the School of Data Science, the School of Information and Library Science to get some of this stuff into their graduate and undergraduate training, so that we can look ahead to the future. So we're training our future researchers to understand all of this information. Consultations, we do lots of work helping people that just don't know what to do for data management. That does not mean that every group has to have this, as many folks have been doing great work with data management. They actually build their own repositories, coordinate with repositories. Many folks don't need this type of support, but there are folks that do. So we help them identify what their funding requirements are, where this data management long-term places to put the data, referral to different units on campus. Quite often we refer them to other cores or other places on campus that do some of this work, and help them identify challenges for that. We do this as part of the RDMC fee. One area that has had some confusion recently, and the language on our website has just been updated to help this out some. One consultation we do is data management plan review, where we can help people on the team write a data management plan, review their data management plan, And that requires several weeks of effort on our part to help folks out. That's part of a service we offer. It is not required. If someone already has a good data management plan, and they've been doing this, they understand it, that could be submitted as is. They don't have to use our consultation service, but we encourage that to help streamline this and to share knowledge, because one of the things we want to do is share that knowledge with other folks on campus. Policy compliance, we want to have the ability to look at things that are in the pipeline, the pre-review of all these data management plans, look at what's in Ramses, look at what's in the system, and then we need to monitor that going forward with the use of the best technology we can have in order to look at where data are published and come up with a way that we can show NIH and other funders that we are on the forefront of this and we are complying to their policies. As I mentioned earlier, sometimes there's infrastructure missing, and we need to either piece together between multiple systems or we need to create new. One of the things, a good example of this is early on, we recognized that there was no repository, long-term data repository for FDA CF21 Part 11 data here at UNC. So we needed to create a long-time archive so they can store those signatures that need to be CF21 Part 11 compliant. So we were able to create that archive, store that data for them long-term, and get that certified and approved for HIPAA data, so we can help maintain that. We also maintain the Dataverse, which is a generalist repository for data that does not have a specific home. There are great places that NIH suggests and many other repositories all around the country that these data probably will be heading to, but there's also gaps and places that we need data that we need places to put, like UNC Dataverse. The DMP tool that we use for data management planning and writing of those, it allows for the ability to customize those templates and share them and log in with your UNC Onion so you can see what other folks have done, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel every single time. So if you've got a project that uses a certain type of data and destined for a certain type of repository, you're able to cut and paste right out of some templates there and make this easier, especially when you have those short deadlines coming. That quite often some of these researchers face. So the impact here is we want to increase the standard for excellence around data and prepare the next generation of folks, promote the competitiveness, be sure that we're not inhibiting people from being able to submit grants due to the lack of compliance. We've already had in the short while we've been doing this, which is not very long, we've already had an issue where a funder talked to a researcher and said, look, your data management sharing plan just will not work. There's no need to even submit your grant because we cannot support that. And it was a confusion with data that was over in the Carolina Data Warehouse. And we were able to work with UNC Privacy and work with the UNC hospitals to change the MOU that allowed that data to be shared once it was de-identified. And we were able to enhance a new data management plan. And now this researcher is able to submit that grant and has a higher likelihood of being approved for that. So that's just one of the examples that we want to work and coordinate agencies all around UNC to make data management sharing work and promote the access here on campus for data. So what is the impact on cores like yourselves? So the number one thing the one question we get is, will this replace anything? It is not meant to replace any existing services. We honestly need all the help we can get around UNC. There's lots and lots of effort going on now. It's great effort. There are definitely gaps where we're going to have to fill those gaps if we find them. But our job here is to coordinate efforts and that design and enhance the research process and not slow it down. We know that sometimes any more administrative things on top can slow things down. We're doing our best not to do that and to promote and enhance as much as possible. this will take some transition time to understand the best way to do this. And we're here learning to work with the research community to identify those gaps, find out where the resources are, and to help groups around campus do their jobs better. One of the things we've talked to several different folks about is what happens at the end of the research life cycle. How do I transition data out of, for example, one of the large data sets that needs to go up to dbGaP or one of the other facilities, but we need a temporary space to actually hold that and house that until it makes its migration, the curation finishes and moves off, because we have lots of active research going on that needs that space. We are working with the School of Medicine and talking to vendors. I actually have a call right after this to talk with some vendors about some approaches that we can create some storage systems that allow us to tag data and move data around with that. And I say move data around virtually rather than physically, because some of this data is too big to move around or too sensitive to move around. So we're working with folks to try to find those gaps. So what I am really interested in is finding out where those needs are, where those pain points, where the things within the cores are emerging. How, if you're having problems complying with policy or you need resources, we need to identify those things so we can have a conversation about those and figure out solutions. That solution may not be RDMC, it may be something else, but what we want to do is consolidate our efforts and be sure that we work as a team to solve this in a holistic approach, so we don't end up having people reinvent the wheel all over campus where they don't have to, because we want them to do their scientific research and not go through these administrative hoops over and over again. As well as we want to identify challenges that prevent people from submitting grants, because the whole goal here is to get these grants submitted and make them as competitive as possible. And with that, I'd like to stop and get as many questions and take, if you have any challenges or any pain points, I'd love to take note of those and maybe schedule some offline time to talk about them.
Any questions? Ramiro?
Yeah, it's just a clarification thing. So if you're a core facility that you're basically offering machines that people are going to be using to generate data, their data, like you're not involved in any of that.
No.
Whose responsibility is it to deal with that data and how to store it and all that stuff? Because I mean, we have 400 or plus users. We normally store the stuff for 6 months, but they should have a copy. They should have saved it themselves, and after 6 months is bye-bye. So whose responsibility is it?
Yes. So ultimately, in all of this, the responsibility lies on the researcher. They're the ones that fill out the grant. They prepare the needs. They prepare the things they need for direct cost. And honestly, they're the only ones that know, right? They know what they're producing, and they know the things that need to be shared in order to comply with the policy. We help them understand if they have some challenges understanding that policy, and if they need resources, especially if they will early on in this research lifecycle, when they start creating that data management plan, if they work with our team, we will help them learn where and how to find and quantify those resources needed to put in direct cost in that grant so they do comply. For example, in your scenario there, well, they know they have 6 months, during that time where they've got to move that data onto that repository. So they should have, when they've submitted their data management plan, identified the repository, where it needs to go and what data goes to the repository, because all of it typically doesn't need to go to the repository, right? There is a effort that goes on where you go through that data and do a triage and make decisions on which data needs to be shared and which does not. Of course, you don't always wait to the end, because this new policy also says anytime you publish data, that data must be shared immediately. So if you publish any of your results during the life of the grant, they have to go ahead and publish those immediately. So they don't always wait to the end. but we're here to help them coordinate and figure out where to go if they need that help. There's some groups that already do this well. They have pipelines and workflows where it moves straight out of those active research life cycles straight into repositories that are already identified. We have been working with folks that we're identifying that have good workflows and helping them modify those workflows to share with other groups on campus that don't have those workflows. What we're finding out is that even folks that have really good workflows for some types of data, they may have gaps. One clear gap is with identifiable data, patient data, data that falls under the HIPAA requirements. And how do they share that data? How do they de-identify that data? How can they talk with their funder about what things have to happen in order to share that data if it can be shared? There are places and times where data cannot be shared, and that's okay, but it cannot be across the board. It's got sensitive data, I can't share it. They're not going with that anymore. You have to make a best effort to understand how you potentially can share that data. And as with the latest effort that we saw with the Carolina Data Warehouse, that we need to make changes there in order to get these grants, because they're just not allowing you to say it's patient data, I can't share it. So we have to come up with a plan for that as well. I hope I didn't ramble too much, but the goal here is to help researchers define how to solve that problem when it comes out of, for example, one of your cores, and they only have that 6-month period before it moves on, that they find a place for it to go. And those resources are direct billable cost within the grant. We're there to help, and some of that small fee is to help them figure out where that can go and to coordinate things. For example, I hate to keep going back to this, but it's right on top of my head because I just talked to them. The Carolina Data Warehouse data sits over in the School of Medicine servers on the research drive for a certain period of time. And then so many months or I think it's a year after the last IRB closes, then that data is removed. Well, we're working with them to figure out how to tag that data so we can increase that time to make it a little more palatable for the folks at NIH that really believe that a year is just not long enough to hold those data. We need to find a more long-term home, but we also don't want to clog up the research drive that's full of that needs new data going in. As we know, data is growing quicker and quicker, and methodological tools that are working on these data are even making that data even larger.
Other questions? I saw one from Mark on the chat that, so John, we have certain types of grants that are only for instrumentation, and typically core directors submit those, the S10 mechanism. And so is the data management and sharing plan the responsibility of the core director because it's associated with the instrument that NIH has funded?
So instrument grants and strictly training grants, they're number one, they're exempt from the fee. It's only research grants that create data. So all those instrument grants and all the training grants are exempt from that fee. Now, if they have data management questions or needs, even though they are not paying the fee for those, I still encourage you to give us a call. We're happy to help out. But that, yes, those data management plans, if you have to have one for that instrument grant, I think that this is a situation where it's really important because it ties to all of those other research grants. They're going to be using those instruments, right? So we have to have a consolidated plan there. And even though you may not have to pay the RDMC fee on those often very expensive equipment, and that'll save you some there, I still think the RDMC has the mission to help coordinate with you folks, and we're happy to do that.
Sure. So each of the PIs that would apply for grants to use that piece of equipment that the core bought would have to have a data management and sharing plan. So that's how that would be compliant. Okay. Other questions? Were there any other in the chat? All right. I know there's been a lot of focus on rigor and reproducibility, right? And as cores, we feel responsible for that. And so part of that rigor and reproducibility is the metadata associated with, for example, images or with genetic data or genomic data. And so, John, I guess I have a question about that whole idea of metadata. How long these things can be stored? Is it just for the life of the grant? As you said, journals are now requiring access to the metadata to understand, everything associated with the images or the genomic data that's being published. And so I guess you guys are thinking about that, working on that.
Yes, and it is a very complex situation because as we all know, as much as we'd love standardization of metadata coming off equipment, that is just not the real world. Matter of fact, quite often it's the competitive nature of the equipment manufacturers. They love to have some specific metadata for their equipment because that makes them a little more appealing than the others. On top of that, in order to, even if you have all the metadata from that equipment, it's quite often the routines, the statistical interpolation methods that, for example, are used on those images. One thing comes to mind, and I'm not sure if she's here or not, but Michelle Atano would speak to that much more than I. But if we've had some conversations on what do we save, how do we comply, and is it the original image? Is it the image plus all the computation? So the answer is there are some good practices. I'm not sure that they're all best practices quite yet. I think we're trying to figure that out. I think that the whole community, it needs to come together and understand that. And there will be some people that do a better job than others. And as we look at across these groups, I think what we want to do is identify the folks that have kind of figured it out and hope to share that with other groups. I do think that it's really important because in order for us to share the data appropriately on the other end, once it leaves the active life cycle, once it leaves these instruments, we really need to be able to track that metadata along the way. And it's not only in instruments, and it's in everything, even things like Qualtrics or survey tools or REDCap. They have tons of metadata that if you extract the quantitative data out the other end, sometimes that metadata is left in that system. And that metadata is what we actually need to share. That's the part that it's important. So sharing that metadata out of the instruments and out of whatever the data collection device is, whether it's an instrument, an actual physical instrument or a survey tool, all of that, it's to our advantage to save all that along the way, if at all possible. And typically the metadata is the small stuff, right? As far as its physical quantity size, it's the most rich stuff. But it is I would say it's the engine that fuels all of the data sharing. So we need to really highlight that.
All right, any other questions? Jonathan, we wish you well. You have a big job.
Well, we're all in this together.
We are.
So
What I will say is, I think I can speak for everybody in the room and on the call, is that we're all committed to this because we're the ones generating the data. And so rigor and reproducibility really depends on the cores that are generating the data that's published. And so we want to be a part of the solution, not on the outside of it.
Absolutely. And what we'd like to do is set up as many coordinating efforts as possible. Once we get our health data steward on board, that person will be going around and meeting every single one of you, working through each group. We've started with a handful, and we're going to try to have some prototypes available early on, but it is a big task. It's not something that's going to happen in 6 months to a year. This is a long-term commitment where we're going to work with everyone here, and we will figure it out. That's the kind of the motto that we're going by, is that we're going to listen, we're going to learn, and we're going to help figure it out.
It's the Carolina way. We help figure it out.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks so much for the presentation. Really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
Or did y'all want to go through all those slides? All right. So we've got 15 or more slides we want to cover here to finish out. And a lot of this is just high level information for you. Heads up on these things. So I'll start with the ABRF annual meeting is coming up. It is in Minneapolis this year in April. Seems a little early for Minneapolis, but if anybody wants to go to some colder climes this spring, I highly encourage you to attend this meeting if you can, if you have time. It's a great meeting. It is the meeting for core directors and core personnel, core staff. Kara's going to mention the travel award that we have available now. This would be a perfect use for a travel award to go to ABRF. The registration is open. The early bird is over and the abstract deadline is already passed. It was this past Monday, but we really encourage you to go. If you have registered, if you intend to go, please let us know, because we like to put together a UNC dinner to get everybody together, for at least an evening while we're at the meeting. So something I wanted to share with you that's been going on in ABRF. I sit on the Committee for Core Rigor and Reproducibility, or CCOR. And we've actually been working together with the AACR journals to, first of all, pitch to them that it's really important that core directors be technical reviewers for their manuscripts. You are the experts. Yeah, thanks, Ramiro. So, and you guys know how important it is to generate data in a rigorous and reproducible way. And so AACR has been very open to this. We've met with their editorial staff, and we are piloting a first go at this to see how it works out. So if you're interested in being a technical reviewer for AACR journals, please let me know. We're kind of signing up a group of 25 or 30 folks that are interested for this first pilot. If you have staff that are experts in certain areas, we encourage you to volunteer. We're going to start with genomics expertise. A lot of the AACR journals have, a lot of genomic data in them, but we do plan to expand this to all of the other areas of expertise in our cores. We feel like the reason we're driving this from the ABRF side is again, to improve reproducibility, provide a career development opportunity for our core directors and core staff. Many of you probably haven't reviewed papers before, and it may be something that it's intimidating, or you don't even really understand how the process works. And so this is a great opportunity to learn how to review papers. Training will be provided. And it also gives you a leg up, because you can see what people are publishing and maybe what new technologies are coming down the pike as a core director. So we're trying to sell this as not just something extra to add to your plate, but actually that you'll get a lot of benefits from it as well. So there's going to be a session at the annual meeting that I just advertised, discussing this initiative, signing up folks that might be interested in doing technical review. And then we're also encouraging folks to be reviewers for the Journal of Biomolecular Techniques, which is ABRF's journal, JBT. And so if you're interested in this pilot, please let me know. We'd love to have your expertise and participation. Something else that some of you have been involved in, but some of you may be interested in, is that our office has facilitated 2 meetings now focused on spatial omics. Unless you've been under a rock, you've probably heard about spatial biology or spatial transcriptomics, proteomics. There's a lot going on here. And we realized that we're a little bit behind, that different labs are doing different things. The cancer centers buying instruments for different labs and PIs, and we wanted to try to be more strategic about this. So back in November, we met with all the core directors that have spatial technologies, and also a group of super users to kind of see where we're at. What do we have, and what do we need? And so we did a gap analysis during that meeting, determined what we're missing, what we would like to have in place. And then right before the break, in December, we met with all of the core directors to discuss some specific targeted action items. Okay, we know what our gaps are. What do we need to do about that to fill those gaps? And we made some decisions about some strategic investments that we're going to make, how our cores can work together. If you know anything about spatial biology projects, they are what we would call a pipeline project. Multiple cores are involved in sequence. And you probably also realize that CFAC has been really focused on funding pipeline projects over the last several RFAs. We've encouraged those kind of projects. Some have gone really well, some have not gone well at all, and we've learned some hard lessons. So we're going to continue down this path. There are also some challenges in spatial, because there are a lot of companies out there that are pushing their own technology or equipment, and many of them are suing each other right now. And so there's some IP fights that are going on in the courts. And so we don't know how it's all going to fall out. But we're trying to make wise decisions around this technology and try to centralize some of these pipelines and manage the flow of the work better. So stay tuned. If you're interested in this, there'll be an open forum probably in the next couple of months, inviting anyone that's interested in spatial biology type projects. Any questions about that? All right, real briefly, this is just an update so that you know what happened with the voucher program. Thank you for, first of all, working with PIs that were interested in applying for the vouchers. We had 82 submissions to this program. That does sound like a lot, but the first go around back in 2019, I think we had, I don't know, it was close to 200 applications. It was a lot. So we actually ended up funding 30 of the 82 vouchers for about 282,000 in 26 different core facilities. So again, a really robust response. We funded as many as we could. If you got one of those vouchers, you're working with a PI who was awarded. These funds need to be spent by the end of the fiscal year. And we're also going to be following up with those awardees to basically find out what happened. What's our return on investment? You know, we're investing this money in these projects, and we would like to know what came out of that. A new grant, new paper, a student thesis, whatever came out of it after 12 months. So we're going to be tracking these metrics, and we've done that for all the vouchers we've done so far. We do intend to run this program again next fall. Like I said, it's very popular, so stay tuned for that. I think that's it for me. I'm going to turn it over to Kara.
Hey, everyone. Really quick, wanted to touch base on the CFAC Spring RFA. You should have all received an email about this. If you didn't, please reach out to me. I'm happy to resend that information, but it opened this week, closes mid-February. Decisions will be made at the March CFAC meeting and announced back to you guys mid-March. So we encourage you to be thinking about that. This is not a limited RFA. It'll be open for method development, equipment, or general core operational needs. Again, we try to make sure all of our funds are spent by the end of the fiscal year. So plan accordingly, especially as that may apply to method development projects. In that same pipeline, as Chris was talking about with these spatial technology conversations, if you have requests for equipment or for method development that can be completed in this timeline, especially if it crosses multiple cores, benefits more than just one or two PIs, or is multiple cores sort of working together to share this technology, we really encourage those requests this go round. They'll kind of receive a little extra consideration. And also, if you plan to submit an S10 in June and you want to ask CFAC for matching funds, we're asking that you let us know now in this RFA cycle. We know it's early, and you may not have gotten too far into the planning process for that S10 yet, but we need to make sure we have those funds set aside before May hits, because by then our funds are getting kind of low. Yes.
So is this again a 10,000 award?
For the CFAC RFA? No, so CFAC typically funds, I think our average is about 30,000. We typically consider requests up to 50,000. Requests more than that have occasionally been funded with good justification, but we try to aim for that 30 to 50K range for the CFAC RFA. And then also just an update, because the core director recently ran into this, pro purchasing, UNC is not currently permitting equipment leases. So if you are considering a new piece of equipment and are considering a lease mechanism for that, we really encourage you to reach out to people way ahead of time to talk about this. It probably won't go through, but just letting everybody know that has happened, and we have received that word from purchasing not to go through equipment lease mechanisms. Any questions on any of that?
Who's planning to submit an S10? Just curious. Anybody?
Adam.
Okay. All right.
The RTC might, it depends on some conversations in the next couple of weeks.
Okay. Yeah. if you're not sure exactly how much you'll request from CFAC or what your matching funds would be, let us know what you can, just so we make sure that we have those funds budgeted. We obviously want to support all of the S10s that people want to submit, but we just want to make sure we have those funds set aside to do so.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So Airgas is currently looking to lease LN liquid nitrogen tanks, you know, because some groups own their own tanks. Is that something that UNC might shoot down?
Airgas is a whole different, does anybody know exactly? Because Airgas leases their tanks, right? Or they want to lease?
Yeah,
their
there's
tanks?
a rental fee. It's a monthly rental fee for any type of tank from ARC3 or Airgas, and that's not included in this issue with equipment
Okay.
leases.
Okay, appreciate it.
Anything else? Okay. As Chris mentioned, and you guys have had now a couple emails about, we are having travel awards. Thank you to those who have submitted. We're funding 2 sets. One's open for submission in the month of January. So get those in before January 31st. We're awarding up to 5 awards for up to $1,000 each. For you guys to attend conferences or for your staff to attend conferences or trainings. We really encourage you guys to do continuing education and to encourage your staff on continuing education and want to support that and make sure you guys are aware of the mechanisms that we have in place for that. So if you're thinking about it, if you're thinking about ABRF, if there's something else that is important to your area of research that you want to go ahead and apply. This is our first go round. There probably will be some tweaks made in future iterations of this, but we're interested to see what you guys need. So. All right. And then this is our last topic here, is talking about accounts receivable. You guys probably know this as unpaid invoices, particularly from external customers. So essentially this is money owed by customers for your core services. This is considered an asset by UNC, and it's considered delinquent after 60 days. Those of you who have a lot of external customers, you know that sometimes payment takes a while to go through, but we are trying to help you track this. So Ben in OSP and myself are reviewing AR for all cores that utilize iLab for billing. So this means because iLab bills internal UNC cores automatically, we're looking at outstanding revenue from external customers, and we may reach out to you if we haven't already to discuss any outstanding AR you may have, especially those older than 90 days. We do plan on tackling this for Infoport, but it's a little bit of a different beast. It'll probably happen later this spring, and you'll hear more about that if you are a core on Infoport. While we're doing this, we really ask you and ask you to communicate to your business managers or staff who might be doing this to mark invoices as paid in iLab once payment is complete. It's a fairly straightforward process. If you're unsure how to do this, please contact myself or Ben or Michael Akridge to assist you. We're all happy to jump on a call and walk you through that process, but that's how we're pulling those AR reports. And so the better that data is in the system, the better data we'll have to help you guys make decisions.
Can you explain why that's so important?
Yeah, so when we first ran a report on this, it showed that for the cores on iLab, there is $1.5 million of unpaid AR. And we realized in going through that a lot of that wasn't real, because it was just that if you went and looked at the cores transactions under your source number, we could find those payments there. And so we were then having to go back and manually mark invoices as paid to get a sense of what that real number is. So we need this data to be accurate so that we can then help you guys make decisions about what to do about outstanding AR. Yes.
Is there a way for that, when a payment is made, rather than having a human involved, that iLabs will pick that payment up and record it as paid?
Unfortunately, not at this time. But it's a button click. And so we can help you keep track of it and do it in a way that's as painless as possible. But it does at this point in time require a human to go in and click. Yeah, Ariana.
So one of my questions is, once we do realize that an account is in delinquent status, I guess we'll just talk to you about the best way to move forward on those accounts.
Yep, so that's exactly what we're talking about next, what to do if you do realize you have a delinquent account. Yeah, Megan.
Just wanna quickly say that if you do credit card payments through iLabs, there is a human, but the human's not in your core, not in your department. So, if you wanna reduce the amount of people touching that you guys have to interact with, push for credit card payments for external companies if you can. Cause those will happen a little bit faster, and automatically get reconciled by School of Medicine's central billing office.
Yeah, so Megan just was letting everybody know that credit card payments, particularly for cores in the School of Medicine, get processed at our central office, and they will do a lot of this for you, and it goes through a lot faster. We know that's not always an option for everybody, but if credit cards are an option for your customer, it does reduce some of the effort involved in this. Yeah, Ariana.
Does that mean it gets marked as paid?
I believe the
Through that way.
central billing office does market them as paid on behalf. We do encourage you guys to check, right? Like if it, essentially that still all comes back down to the core directors and the business managers for the core to be on top of. But yes, typically the mark is checked as paid if it's done through the central billing office, but that's for School of Medicine cores.
One question going back to the question of like, we have to go through each thing and click the button. I mean, we have over 400 like users.
But this is for external accounts.
Yeah.
It's
So
not for
this
internal.
is not internal at all.
Okay, okay.
Only external if you're using iLab. InfoPort's different.
Okay, I was like, I don't want to be like.
No, you do not.
Okay.
Did you have a question, Tim? No, okay. So then the question comes back is if you have a customer, how do you resolve payments, right? Number one, if you have a customer who says payment was remitted but you don't have a check in hand or any record of this, how do you track it down? We know a lot of you guys have had issues where checks are sent to a different office, potentially a different totally part of campus, a different building. And how do you track that down? So that is where Ben and Megan and myself are really here to help you guys. We'll ask that you guys request as much information about that payment as possible, like the billing address that it was sent to, the check number, total dollar amount. And then we can help you guys inquire with all of the different units that usually end up with these sort of lost checks and figure out if they have yours somewhere else. And then what to do if you have a customer who hasn't paid within 90 days. So 60 days is considered delinquent by UNC. Just having been in this for the last few months, getting into the data, it's not unusual for payment to take longer by the time it gets through a different university's accounting system, by that time it gets sent here, by the time it takes to find a check that might have gone to a wrong building. So Ben and myself are really looking at that 90-day number. So we encourage you to stop working on any other projects you might have for that customer. If they reach out to you about starting a new project, remind them they have this unpaid invoice. And so that's why it's really important for you guys to be keeping track, especially in iLab or even in your own system if you have it. Keep track of what's still outstanding so that you can make those decisions for the individual customer. Your question, Ariana?
Is this something that we can talk to Michael or somebody with iLabs to kind of set up a system so that we don't fall behind? Because I found that was our problem.
Mm-hmm.
Like you emailed us and I didn't even realize we had so many.
Yeah.
So is there a way in iLabs to kind of set this up so it's easier to see?
There absolutely is. And so Ben actually will talk about that in just a minute. But yes, in short, we're trying to make this as easy as possible and get you this information in your hands so you know which customers are delinquent. And then you also can do a quick look and just check, oh, I'm pretty sure we got payment from that customer. Let me fix that. And then again, both Ben and myself can assist in deciding the best way to escalate, whether that's within the customer's organization or with UNC to try to get payment for you guys if it's owed. Yeah, Michelle.
Kind of more of a systemic question. Is there any talk about when we get a vendor services agreement with a vendor to get some sort of a number that would be processed more digitally, like a credit card payment or something from them? Because the whole process right now of no digital acceptance of a check seems to be not current, right? And so especially since we already have payment information from them, and then we still have to go through the whole check and mailing and cutting and receiving process, is there any thought of kind of cutting through that on the finance side?
Yeah, it's a great question. So for those of you on the Zoom, Michelle's question was asking about how much of this hand check manual process needs to be kept up at UNC, or how much can be digitalized. Honestly, I don't know. It would make sense to me, but we know your systems sometimes move slow. So that's probably a question for OIC, Office of Industry Contracting, as to whether or not that's something that can be put in some of those contracts for your customers. And then also with purchasing, I'm happy to follow up and see if there's any thoughts on that front. Ben and Megan, do you have any?
Yeah, we've been working and we're becoming engaged with accounting services to learn more about their processes, making deposits and things like that. We're beginning to let them know that, hey, sometimes some of our cores have a big problem with misapplied payments, out there in the ether somewhere that no one's getting. So we're starting to talk to them about a better way to do that, at least so they're more informed of like what cores are out there and what payments need to be deposited where. So I was actually having a conversation with them on Friday about that.
So things are in the works, but I think we're still very much in a fact-finding mission of exactly how big is this problem, and what can we change within the current system.
Hey, Kara, this is Mandy. I have a question. Because there's some duplicative equipment across cores on campus, do you ever have issues with investigators, internal, external, that have delinquency issues, then hopping to a different core to use that same technology and then being delinquent across multiple cores?
Yeah, that's a good question. And that's part of why we're digging into this and something that we can look at now that we have this data. And again, this is why we need that data to be accurate in iLab so that we can look and see if we have repeat offenders. We don't know that right now because we don't, frankly, up until we've had Ben and Megan in their current roles, and we've been able to get Tableau reports for financials across campus, not just within the School of Medicine. Now we can start to look into those sorts of questions and identify those companies or individuals that maybe should be on a watch list. But we don't have that information right now. If you suspect that that might be going on, please feel free to reach out and we can look into other cores outstanding AR and try to determine if it might be the case.
And I'll add to that, like now we're running AR reports and we have the ability to look at AR not only from the core facility level, but from an institutional level as well. So if company ABC is delinquent with core A and also core D, that will show up in our reports. We can get a better grasp on those things.
Yeah. So Ben said that at institutional level, we are able to look at that now, so. All right. Any other question? Yeah.
I just want to comment for the Cancer Center shared resources, the ones that Sharon sends out monthly to you. There is a PDF file, and if you scroll down to the bottom of it, there will be a list of all of your outstanding invoices along with name and pricing on that too that you can refer to.
So Holly said that for all Lineberger cores on the monthly reports sent to you by Sharon, there should be a list at the bottom of outstanding AR, which should be accurate. And also, I know some of your business managers are very good at keeping track of this too. This is not to take anything away from the effort they're doing. This is just for us all to be able to see it and for some transparency across campus. Yeah.
I owe you an email about it, but this is separate. This is internal. In iLab, I've asked this before. It no longer says like paid, right? All the internal invoices are not marked as paid anymore.
Yeah, sorry, you go ahead.
Yeah, that's really tripping me up.
Yeah, it's an internal problem. Well, not internal, but it's a problem with Agilent that we're having to work with them to solve, and they've been dragging their feet. Not to pass the buck on to anyone else. We've been quite frustrated with it. It is in the works. They're in the testing phase now, so we hope that that's going to be fixed soon. And part of the fix is going to be going back through the backlog of internal invoices that are marked as unpaid, but then we'll mark all those as paid.
Okay.
You do have the option, I know it's laborious, but you do have the option of marking them yourself as paid, but it's not feasible for most people. we're hoping to get it done in the next month or so and have that fix in place.
That like would really help me look through, this problem with external too, just.
Yep.
So,
Everything looks like unpaid.
right.
You can filter by internal or external.
Yeah.
So that'll help too.
Okay.
So Laura's question was about the current iLab issue where internal invoices aren't being marked as paid. They are actually paid. That payment process does go through. There's a problem on Agilent's end. It's in the works to be fixed. So if you want to go into iLab to try to look at your own outstanding AR now, make sure you filter to only look at external because internal is paid, even though it's not currently being shown marked as paid. All right. Any other questions on this? No?
Yeah, so that's a follow up on that day, because I made a request for the customer and then it's goes to the customer already click it, but it's still somehow like still in the process or something like that on the iLab. But when I check on the Tableau, the account side, it is already paid and the money already comes in.
Mhm.
So can I delete the request on the iLab?
So we encourage you not to delete any requests, just to mark them as paid. I can follow up with you after this, Mo, and walk you through exactly how to do that.
Cool, thanks.
All right. Thank you guys. That's the end of Chris and I's portion, our contact information. Please let us know if you have any questions. I'm going to now pass it over to Ben, who's also going to talk about next steps for accounts receivable.
All right, hey, everybody. If we haven't dedicated enough time to accounts receivable, just wanted to touch on one other thing while it's fresh in everybody's mind, and I'm gonna hurry now. I realize we only have like 7 minutes left. So we are creating a Tableau report for you guys for the cores that utilize iLab. So you'll have a Tableau report that you can go in and view your accounts receivable information per core. The Tableau report will, essentially it's an aging report. So the outstanding invoices will be grouped by the number of days that they're outstanding. You can further expand and drill down into that to get the customers that have outstanding invoices. And then you can further drill down into the transactional data to get the actual invoice numbers that are outstanding. We have this in place. We're hoping to release it in the next month or so. We're fine tuning some issues now. We'll certainly send out communication when this is available. But to your point, Ariana, we hope this will allow more visibility for you guys into your AR balances. So we'll do this backwards and I'll do introductions, but Megan Kraft is here. We're very lucky to have her. She's Interim Director of Research Core Strategy. I'm Ben Wright, and also in the audience is Michael Akeridge, who's our RCD Financial Analyst and resident iLab expert. So I'm going to turn it over to Megan now, who's going to talk a little bit about the OVCR cost sharing program.
Hi, everybody. So I just wanted to briefly talk about the OVCR cost share request. So FYI, it's a little more laborious than some of the other ones, so just be prepared for that. If you are gonna submit to CFAC and OVCR, just start with the CFAC one and then just add the little bit of extra stuff that the OVCR is gonna ask for. So they are doing anything sort of similar to CFAC, except they don't do method development. So if you're submitting an S10 grant and you need cost share funding, if you're looking at getting new pieces of equipment that will support more than the School of Medicine, remember CFAC, School of Medicine, OVCR, everybody. So you need to kind of have a really good proof of concept that says this is going to support more than just School of Medicine cores. If you can get the college in, that really helps. But one of the big things is they are looking for a third. So they want to see a third coming from them, a third coming from your school, and or a third coming from you or departments. So they just want to make sure that everybody's got buy-in. I would strongly recommend letting me know if you're going to submit it, because I don't see it. So for those of you that might have known Joyce, it used to go to Joyce. Joyce then sent it to Terry, which became Penny. I am now kind of in this mix a little bit, but I'm not on the front end. So if you don't tell me you're submitting, then I might not know until it's a little too late or it's been sitting for too long. I'm also the advocate that I've always been. So the more I know, the more I can advocate on your behalf for why this is important, and why we need to be providing funding for it. Okay, good. So these are the cycles. They are predetermined. They happen the same time every year. They say on the website, they'll respond within a couple of weeks. Lies and deceit. Andy's not on this call, so I can say that. It will not happen in 2 weeks. Right now, Penny's getting used to her new space. Everybody's on a finance shortage. So they have to kind of wiggle it around sometimes. So if you're submitting an S10, do not submit that last cycle that would give you the response in May. Pablo learned this the hard way. It was my fault too, but don't do that. Do the cycle before, even if it's not a hard, fast, like I know for sure I'm gonna need $25,337. Give us some generalities so we can make sure that we're there. If you are kind of asking everyone still as well, just put in there who all you plan to ask and kind of preemptively say where you think you'll get the funding from. They can at least give you a preliminary approval, assuming all things stay relatively the same.
So Megan, specifically for the S10 submitted in
Mhm,
June,
mhm,
you're
mhm.
recommending they go in February 28th.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I thought mid-May would work, but like I said, Pablo and I learned, not a good idea. Because if it comes back, as Pablo reminded me, if it comes back and they say, we're only gonna give you 25,000 and not the 25,336, you then have to go scramble to find that other 336. So just save yourself the trouble.
But if we have to go in by February 28th, we won't have the decision back from CFAC at that point, will we?
No.
No. Like I said, we can do preliminaries though. So these are not like set in stone amounts, but you could put in there that you're requesting from CFAC as well. So at least if you put it in there that the plan is to get the funding and just let CFAC know that you're also submitting to OVCR. I'm on the committee, on the CFAC committee, so I'll communicate kind of where we think our position is and vice versa. So like I said, let me know early, please. So that way I can work on getting whatever information I need and kind of help you with the advocacy up the chain. Remember a third. Andy is very much a stickler on that. Within a small range, we're allowable, but don't go much over that because it's not gonna work. And again, timing is key. Never gonna take 2 weeks. I appreciate the thought, but it's just not. At least not for a little while until Penny gets her hands around things and Andy and Penny and I all figure out that process. As much as you can leverage any external funds, as long as you're benefiting more than just the School of Medicine. Remember, School of Medicine is the most wealthy, so the college needs to be supported as well. As long as we're avoiding unnecessary duplication, this is where a lot of things were getting hung up before. If we were buying a mass spec, Andy loves the mass specs, likes to talk about those. Or I like to talk about flow machines. Those two, if you're ordering those, we really need the justification to them on why we need a duplication. We need to see it's at 100% capacity. We need to see that it's on its last leg. We need to really be able to justify why we're gonna have more than one of these. Obviously, always dependent on availability of funding. As we've heard a couple of times, a lot of people are a little more strapped for cash than they used to be. OVCR is no different. I know the core data management people got a new percent, but we didn't, so just saying. And then matching funds are required. Again, be a third. We're not gonna provide all the funding to you. I would say to the point of what Kara was saying earlier around kind of like ballpark, what's getting approved. It's very dependent on like how big it is. Obviously, cryo-EM, $100,000 isn't gonna go very far. But for most of your general requests, I would say somewhere in the $100,000 ballpark is probably gonna be easier to get approved pretty quickly. Anything above that, we're really gonna have to advocate for it, especially if it's over multiple years. Or if you're like, I don't know, Laura, asking for it in like 2 weeks, just saying. Give us a little more notice than that. And then as close as it is to the current university mission, the school's kind of strategic priorities. Penny is working on her announcements for what her thoughts are on the next moves for our strategic research priorities. Obviously, buzzwords, let's like, we all know that, get those in there as much as you can. And in the future, I'll let you know if we update the portal. That is a long-term plan to make the request a little bit easier, a little bit more fluid. And so it reduces the back and forth that has been happening a lot on the back end. Any questions?
Just, sorry, out of curiosity, how common is, or is it possible to have some individual, random individual, basically say like, hey, I'll buy you this machine and donate it to your core or the university or whatever? Is that something that happens? And if it doesn't, is that allowed?
I wish we had ferry equipment people.
It is allowed.
It is allowed.
Donations are allowed, but they do have to go through asset management.
Right.
You get a value placed on.
And are you thinking internal, like a PI is saying?
I'm thinking like
external?
Bill Gates or like somebody else or whatever.
I mean, if you have a phone number, I'm happy to call, try to find
I
a
have a
few.
few.
Yeah, I mean, as Michael said, donations are allowed.
Okay.
I have not found very many equipment ferries, but happy to talk to any of them about donations.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Hold on. I just also want to reiterate that we are working really closely with Megan, and we have been, for transparency here. So if you're applying for matching funds, you're asking CFAC, you're asking OVCR, just let us know all who you're all asking, so that we from the beginning can try and coordinate some of this and let the other people know what we're thinking, or have those conversations ahead of getting into trouble because things aren't approved ahead of time, or somebody doesn't understand something. So just the more transparent everybody who submits these can be with us, the better it will help you.
Yeah, strongly recommend, do not send each one of us our own email, not letting us know that you're asking everyone else. I can appreciate that you're trying to get all your pennies, but 90% of the time, if you just kind of put us all on an email, especially those of us in kind of these higher positions, and let us know who you're looking at, sometimes we can even advocate there on your behalf and try to get some sort of approvals happening a little faster. If one of them, you know, left hand talks to the right hand. So yeah, let us know. We're all here to help you guys. Like, that's literally what our jobs are. So let us help you as much as we can.
All right, we have -4 minutes, so I'm just gonna run through this really quickly. I think we locked the door so nobody can leave. Just some metrics for the first half of fiscal year 2024, our cores at UNC did about $19 million in revenue. We're right on track to meet or exceed our fiscal year 23 numbers, which is amazing. Our core supported over 1,500 unique project IDs, over 600 UNC labs, over 180 external customers. So just wanted to throw this out there to show the great impact and great work that you guys are doing. We really appreciate the opportunity to provide a little sliver of support to you guys. Again, I'll run through this really quick. We did release a new research core development webpage as part of the larger OSP webpage. We encourage you guys to check that out. The URL is here. Some iLab news and updates. We did renegotiate a contract with Agilent, and we increased the number of iLab seats that UNC has from 50 to 60. 3 of those are already spoken for, with cores onboarding in the spring of this year, but there are 7 remaining seats for the remainder of calendar year 2024. We did release a new institutional landing page for iLab. Most of you, if you work in iLab, have probably already seen this. It just provides a nicer landing page for those of us that have not yet logged into iLab when visiting it. There's also a core list here. We list out all the cores by category to increase the exposure for our cores to internal and external customers. So feel free to check that out. If there's any information for your particular core that needs to be changed or updated, just send us an email and we'll make those changes. Wanted to point out the great job that Michael Akridge has done on creating some iLab training resources and videos. Those are available on the RCD webpage. The link is provided here. We encourage you guys to check that out as well. And for those of you that utilize iLab, if there are any recommendations that you guys have, like, oh, we want to know how to do this, we want to know how to do this, let us know and we'll be happy to put together some training for that. And as always, you can reach out to core support at med.unc.edu for any iLab support and assistance. Just wanted to quickly highlight advanced payments. We had a couple instances of PIs last year requesting to make advanced payments for core services that have not yet been rendered. And for internal payments that are coming from sponsored projects, this is not allowable. We're drafting a memo right now that's going to go out to all of campus explaining why these are not allowable and why these are prohibited. We'll hope to get that sent out in the next couple of weeks. But if anybody is dealing with a PI that is being persistent about this or asking questions or pushing back, feel free to send them our way and we'll be happy to help them understand why those advanced payments are not allowable. We will, sure.
Can we just confirm that those advanced payments are not if your PI is prepaying for a kit? That's very specific to them. It cannot be a generalized kit that you can use for anyone. But if they're buying a specific kit, that's different than saying, my grant's running out in 4 days and I've got about $15,000. Can I just park it for a little bit and then like spend it later? That's what we mean, not prepaying for specific supplies like R&D type supplies that if they don't use them, then you don't use them either. Those types of things you can do, but not, I just have some money that I really need to spend. Can I pay you?
Yeah, I had a couple of PIs that did that, and I was like, nope, sorry.
Yeah.
No, but. No.
Great answer. And thanks for that clarification, Megan. We will be disseminating the slides for the presentation. After this, we will also be sending out the recording of the presentation. So feel free to share that with any of your staff or anybody who couldn't attend or join us online today. We provided the contact information here, a bunch of emails. And lastly, I know they've all left now, but just wanted to say a big thank you to our presenters, John, Alyssa, and Robbie. It was great that they could come out and spend the morning with us and share all that great information. And thank you to all of you guys as well for coming here or attending online. And thanks for all the great work that you do. And thanks for staying 8 minutes over. We really appreciate it. For those of you that are here, there's probably a lot of breakfast stuff left over. So grab a handful on your way out. Thank you guys.
See you. Nice to meet you.